All right, howdy there, fellow Shadow Priests. Welcome to a very exciting The War Within PvP video. Now, while these tips will be definitely specific to The War Within, I think that there are some tips that will transcend generations and expansions, so that if you were to play Shadow Priest next expansion, some of these tips would still carry over. And I feel like I'm going to go over some really basic ones, but also some obscure and more like esoteric Shadow Priest secret technology. If you want to learn how to get a 2.2 million rift in arena, stay tuned and yeah, check this out. So I guess the first tip I want to talk about is something that is maybe underutilized anytime I'm doing like coaching or VOD reviews for people. If you're interested in that, definitely check the Discord out and contact me directly. We have these really cool defensive talents that are very strong for us. So we have something that reduces our damage by 10% when we fade, and something that reduces our damage by 10% when we flash heal ourselves. Thus, we could give ourselves a 20% wall pretty much every 20 seconds for 10 seconds. So it's like 50% of the time we could have 20% less damage taken. Not to mention we already have passive healing from Void Leech and just a ton of other self-healing in general. So if you want to be tanky, my number one tip is anytime you have multiple targets on you, whether it's melee or casters, and you're just trying to get through interrupts, if you just toss out a flash heal, sometimes people will panic kick it, or if you get kicked on VT, just use a global flash heal, fade, and then boom, you have 20% damage reduction. So that's definitely one really good tip to help you with survivability. Anytime people pop cooldowns, throw out that heal, throw out that fade. That's tip number one. And then the rest of these we'll try to show like more examples in arena. Obviously you'll see me do this on stream and throughout some of these games. You'll see some flash heals interwoven there. The second tip, definitely more specific to the War Within. Playing Void Weaver, this is kind of where most Shadow Priests have settled, in a build that's similar to this right here. Anytime you Void Torrent, you are going to summon an Entropic Rift. And the Entropic Rift will stack more power and damage per every time you Devouring Plague. Now, the catch to this is that it is a big glowy ball that people can clearly see and run away from. So I have been often playing the No Escape, which is going to slow people and make it harder for them to run away. However, if they do get away because they have mobility abilities such as Teleport, Blink, Heroic Leap, Feral Leap, I don't know, any of those like random spells, or even just like a Priest Fading and Feathering can get away. Anytime it's, obviously about to expire, people can outplay it and try to run. And since SP is so popular and definitely, more prevalent on the ladder, people are starting to realize that, hey, you need to run from that rift and save yourself that 2.2 million explode. So what we're going to do is make this macro, and you don't have to macro to Shadow Word Pain, but if you do slash Cancelora Entropic Rift, you'll see you get a buff up here for the Entropic Rift, don't you, somewhere? Or no, you can just cancel. You don't even get a buff. You just cancel that. And that's going to explode the rift before it manually times out. So depending on how long your Void Torrent channels for, the rift is going to be about 8 seconds to build over time. And if you want to cancel that because, say, an enemy's in a stun, or perhaps an enemy is going to use a mobility cooldown, or they're about to get a defensive cooldown up, and you want to make sure that it explodes before that defensive cooldown goes off, or like vice versa, if a healer's about to use a big cooldown like pain suppression, or I don't know, you could just pick any defensive cooldown from any healer. If you want to time it so that you can get the most optimal damage and you want it to explode early, you just cancel Aura and Entropic Rift. Now I have it macroed to Shadow Word Pain because that's also going to tick a Catharsis. And just one other note on the Rift, and I'm not going to include this as one out of the however many tips I end up doing. Just really good that you pull your Insanity a little bit so you're not DPing before you Rift, because once you Rift, you're going to want to essentially DP as many times as you can, and you also want to have a Dark Ascension up so that the rift damage is boosted, and just do whatever you can to generate Insanity for those DPs. Now with that collapse, that should be a pretty big one, 2.5 million. I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to find that in arena. These are PvP training dummies, but getting a 2.2, like I just said before, was really exciting. So just in terms of generating Insanity, and make sure you're using as many Devouring Plagues after that rift is available. And like I said, if you think they're going to get out of it, then you just boom, collapse that thing. So I just collapse it right now, boom, goes away. Better than it doing no damage as long as you're getting a couple ticks off. All right, in this example, talking about collapsing this void with our new fancy keybind. So just a little in-game example here. I'm fishing for precog. I get Searing Glare to spam Flash Shield. I was trying to see if it would put up the magic debuff for damage reduction. I don't know if it actually did. Don't think it did. Now I'm going to fish for that precog again. Kill the grounding with Shadow Word Death. Still fishing for precog here. Get my dots in the fail. Now I have my Dark Ascension active. I'm going to cast Void Torrent and then watch my globals. Devouring Plague, Devouring Plague, Devouring Plague, Devouring Plague. So it's 3 DPs, 4 DPs. It's going to be a pretty big rift. And before they can get any more cooldowns off or the fail gets away, I'm going to collapse it when he's low HP to ensure that that goes off and we win the game. All right, for our next tip, we're going to do something pretty straightforward. It's going to be a life grip on your healer when they're about to get CC'd. Now, the best application for this is for trap, which is pretty easy to predict. They're usually going to do like an in-tim stun, or they're going to trap off their partner's CC. Good hunters will root, but not all hunters will be able to root. So if you want the macro, this is what it would be. Slash cast target equals your healer's name, or you can do party 1, party 2, but I prefer doing individual names. I actually use dynamic macros to automatically filter the healer's name into my macro, but there's another video for that. I'll put that in the description if needed. And then Leap of Faith. Now this is off global, so anytime your healer gets CC'd, it's important to be aware. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that our healer is marked. Check this out. Pro tip, marking in the game while I'm moving, getting distance. And now typically it's good to wait for the hunter's trap to go off. However, I don't want to get pounced, so I choose to grip a little early. This is going to at least kind of delay his CC and make it harder to land the trap. I can easily move into it, eat the trap, and get dispelled. Nice little Shadow Priest tip there. Say, for example, let's just pretend that the Feral Druid is right where this priest is, and my paladin sitting right here. If he's casting a clone, I can also grip him away to negate the CC. Now, life grip is a minute cooldown. It's off global. Your two priorities as a Shadow Priest are to CC the enemy healer and then prevent CC on your healer. Now, you can do that with Mass Dispel. You can do that with life grip. You can do that by silencing incoming CC. There's stuff you can do to keep your team in the game. So pretty nice there. Just see if I can find any other examples, if I grip any other traps in this game. So we could see grips off cooldown, grips off cooldown. All right, looks like we're about to use a grip here. Got my fancy rift chasing at him. I can explode it if needed. My healer's stunned. Grip him. Eat the trap again. Boom. That's 2 in 1 game. Good use of life grip stop. Check out this next one. Let's see, healer's gonna get scattered. We know this is a trap. This is an example where you can actually see the trap being launched. And you can also track Omnibar and see if the trap's in there and then grip, but it's a little risky. I'd rather just make sure that we're getting that grip off before we get CC'd. So that is 3 traps negated with life grip, and we lose the game because of it. No, I'm just kidding. We do lose the game, but that's just still one example. We would have lost even faster if I didn't grip those traps. So let's just keep that in mind. We did end up beating this team a couple times after, but just one good example. All right, our next tip is gonna have to do with positioning. And if you take a look at our Shadow Priest talents on the bottom right of the left-hand priest tree, Phantom Reach increases the range of most spells by 15%. Now basically this means that any class that has a ranged interrupt or a gap closer, we will be able to cast on them before they are able to interrupt or like charge or leap or whatever, shadow step to us. So just pretend this is a deer right here, right? If that deer had a kick, I can cast right here and the deer won't be able to kick me because there's like a 5 to 10 yard range where I'm out of range. Now we kind of have to use this to our advantage. We can, it's a little buggy, so you can kind of clip it. Like if I just get in range of the Shadow Crash and then I go away, and then I can start casting, I can start casting a Void Torrent and then get out of range of that kick and get out of line of sight. These things are going to be very advantageous to us, not just in terms of avoiding interrupts, but also putting people into bad spots and just kind of like staying far away from the fight. We really want to use this to the best of our ability. If you can outrange a lot of the kicks, such as like Wind Shear is a shorter distance, obviously Counterspell being like one of the max distance interrupts. If you could just range little kicks like that, you will avoid having to fake cast, and if you do a lot of damage overall, you're going to win, especially in like solo shuffle and arena and dampening. Like Shadow Priest is going to come out on top if you can survive long enough, and often playing back is compatible with doing more damage and surviving better. So kind of have to play a little bit more cautious, and like the idea of running in and CCing is not the best idea. So take a look at my positioning here. the warrior, do you see how I'm like spamming Shadow Crash? Because I know he's about to get in range to charge me. So right here, when my Shadow Crash becomes white, that means I can shoot the Shadow Crash. And look at all this distance between me and the warrior. So I'm going to use that to my advantage. I'm going to shoot out the Shadow Crash, and then as soon as I Shadow Crash, I'm immediately moving back out of range to further increase that distance. Now, he couldn't charge me even where I leaped it, but if I stayed still, he would have got the charge off. I wouldn't have gotten the Void Torrent here. So now I'm able to Void Torrent and Shadow Crash and continue to move backwards. Like, look at this. I'm just doing a straight line back, and staying out of range of the charge. And you can even see it's like staying out of range on my spells right here because I'm just spamming them, hoping that they go off. Now that this warrior finally leaps to me and gets out of the roots, I've already like gotten my Rift out. I've already gotten my dots out. The only thing I really need to do is try to fake cast to get my Dark Ascension up, maybe boost the damage of the explosion. I'm going to get that off maybe here. It looks like my Rift explodes first. So I use that precog to get dots out on everybody. And just using, again, I know this is probably not part of the tip anymore at this point, but using my positioning to my advantage, I can cast while move. I have instant cast, so it's good to always be dragging people. Like initially the priest started all the way in their waiting room, and I dragged the warrior to right here, and then now I'm taking it to the pillar, so the priest is just having to like chase this warrior all the way around the map and not having the best of times. And this is just like a very quick, easy win. Break the Reflective Shadow or Death, Shadow Crash, boom. Catharsis. Very quick round, but like this strategy becomes even easier later on in the game when people have to feel like they have to overextend for the win, especially if you're getting trained. You can use your positioning to your advantage, take people around the pillar, cast while moving, stay far away from interrupts, and that is that tip. Another very small and easy tip, just talking about fake casting, and obviously Shadow Priest is one of the only classes that has to consistently cast damage. A lot of people are just sitting there faking, trying to get that bacon. But I think it is more effective to kind of fake cast and then use a global. So if you have like stop casting macroed into either like Shadow Word Pain or Dispel Magic, anytime you're looking to get those cast off and you want to cancel it, you can actually use a global when you cancel it. So that obviously it puts you on global and it'll take a second to start casting again, but at least that way you're generating insanity and having some type of efficacy throughout the game, not just standing there not using globals. And then also knowing what spells people actually want to kick. Like obviously you never want to fake with Void Torrent because you want that thing to channel fully. Ideally you're casting Void Torrent with a precog or like out of range of interrupts. People really want to kick VT. They really want to kick Dark Ascension. I would say like Mind Blast is not worth faking with because nobody's scared of how hard did I just hit. Nobody's scared of a 200k Mind Blast. So even if you want to just tank kicks, you can go for Flash Heals to get that that buff on you that reduces all damage taken by 10%. Like I said earlier in the video, you can fake cast with MD or you can just tank kicks with MD. Most people will panic and kick MD just because they think you're doing something important. They're not aware of what's actually going on in the game. But I found the stop casting thing to be super helpful for me. And then also, yeah, you can even macro to death as well to kill totems and shit. Avoid fake casting with Mind Flay for no globals. Yeah, Mind Flay Insanity is one thing that I will channel like halfway through because I feel like that is something that people really want to kick. And if I know they have interrupts and they're like about to get to me, I don't think it's the worst to fake cast with Mind Flay Insanity. Obviously, it's going to do some amount of damage. Even if you're regular Mind Flaying, it will generate a little bit of insanity as you do it and then you fake cast. But yeah, you could do something like that as well. Okay, for my final tip, this is just reminding everybody how special the spell Shadow Word Death is. It is going to deal damage to you after you press it. So if an incoming CC is coming at you, you can Shadow Word Death right before it hits you, and then it'll break that CC. It'll break CC such as Fear, even the Priest Fear. You can death, if you don't have Fade, you can death the Fear. You can death a Polymorph, you can death a Hex, you can death a Warlock Fear, Incap, Scatter, Trap. Like there's so many things you can do it too. It's an instant cast that generates insanity, and then also if you have Devour Magic talented, or Devour Matter rather, with the Void Weaver talent tree, it's going to deal extra damage and take shields away from people. So if a DK uses AMS, and you death it and then get a Death Speaker proc and death it again, boom, that AMS is gone. Same with Life Cocoon, shields from Priest, like especially Rapture Shield is really nice to death into. So just reminding everybody that death actually is useful. It might not hit super hard, but when you combine that Devour Magic thing in there, it suddenly begins to hit hard. So I hit a 600k death in the Soul Shuffle lobby here. Obviously, if you're adding the 200k, I don't think that shows up in details, actually. I think it just like removes the shield. I could be wrong, but that is definitely adding a lot of damage. It's also something you can use on the move if everybody has kicks up and you have a Death Speaker proc. Boom. I like to kill Shadow Word Death or use Shadow Word Death to kill totems. Things such as Charmer Totem that only have 1 HP, you will always be able to kill. Even if you don't have a Death Speaker proc, it'll just die. So if you're running at a shaman and you know, okay, I have fear, he knows I have fear, he's going to tremor, I just kind of keep my mouse ready, and then boom, death, and then fear next global, and then bada bing, bada boom. I also use it to take Spell Reflect off if you have Mind Flay and Sanity procs, so you don't want to waste the proc. I think Mind Flay technically is probably better into Reflect, but death generates Insanity, it barely hits for anything. Just a great way to deal with like Spell Reflect and taking shields off, avoiding CC. The spell has so many applications. I'm not going to provide any examples of those. I feel like I was able to describe them and you can imagine them, but you'll see Shadow Priest all over on Twitch TV using death to escape CC, to deal more damage into shields, and to kill totems. Oh yes, someone else adding in the chat, Skeleton Jelly, adding the tip to if there's a Ring of Frost down, you can death and run into it and tank that CC. Put yourself on DR. Very, very nice. Awesome tips. And I think that is all I got for this video. But I like the idea of this video. I'll try to come up with more as we go. We'll see what response this gets. And if you guys have other tips, put them down in the comments and enlighten your fellow Shadow Priesters. I'm sure there's some stuff I'm missing and would love to touch on that as well. Thank you guys for watching and stay tuned for the next video.